Welcome back, class. We talked about algorithms today, and remember the definition of an algorithm. Really three things we're looking at. A series of specific steps that are finite, meaning they end. It's not an infinite number of steps, it's a number of numbered steps that are used to accomplish a problem or a task. That's all an algorithm is. We talked about a recipe being an algorithm, a series of finite steps used to accomplish a task. It's that simple. Today we're going to demonstrate in code an algorithm that has to do with finding a number in a list. It would be the same algorithm if we were talking about finding a name in a database. Does your name exist in this database? Maybe the database at the school, maybe a government database, maybe you bought some tickets, some e-tickets, and you're going to a concert, and they scan your tickets or they look your name up, and they found your name in the database. You get entry into the concert. This selection algorithm is used all the time. Okay, so what I have here, I'm in the gadget editor, and I've got a list of numbers. And these numbers I just made up. They're random numbers. I believe there's 14 of them. We want to write a simple program to see if we want to ask the user for some input for a number, and then we're going to tell the user whether that number is in the list or not. Okay, and before we write any code, we want to think about our algorithm. In this case, we did this in class, and this is fairly straightforward. But I'm just going to write my algorithm in comments, and then I'm going to go fill my comments in with code later on. So the first step, we've got an algorithm's got to start somewhere. So we pick the first thing we got to do, we're going to ask the user for a target value. And I'm going to use that word target. In other words, what number are we looking for? Then we select a number from the list. We're going to do a comparison operator. Compare target to number in list. If target and number from list match, great, we're done. Otherwise, we need to select another number from the list. Okay, that essentially is our algorithm. And our algorithm, it keeps going until we're out of numbers to check. So I'm going to leave these comments here, and let's start filling these comments in with code. Now the first thing we want to do, we know we want to get some information from the user. So we know that's the input function. Enter a target value. Make it look good, space, some quotes there like that. Now I want to save this because my list, what type of numbers are in my list here? What type? Think about that. You all know that. These are integers. So I want this value that I'm getting from the user, I want it to also be an integer. So I'm going to remember input generates a string. I'm going to convert it to a float, convert it to an int, and lo and behold, I'm going to use target as my variable name. I've now got a value from the user. Now, as we talked about in class, in order to go through this list, we're going to have to check every single value. We may have to check every single value, right, to see if something exists here. So the for loop lends itself very nice to this, because I can do a for loop, and I can do the loop as many times as there are items in the list. Okay? And I don't know if you remember or not, but there's this little function called length. And it returns the length of a lot of things. One is the length of, it returns how many items are in a list. So I can do something like this. And if I print that, okay, I'm going to comment our input out. I don't want to quite ask the user yet. But let's just print this. Look at that, return 14. It returned 14, the length of num list. How many items are in num list? And if I were to count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Look at that. It tells me how many items are in my list. So now, get that back up. Now, I'm going to use that length of num list. I'm going to use that in a for loop. I want you to see how I'm going to use this. And you guys, I know we're familiar with for loops at this stage. So, how do they look? For I in range, well, I want range 14. Well, this list may change in size. What's going to give me the size of the list? Well, this length of num list is, so watch this. Within my range here, I'm going to stick length of num list. Just like that, and that's going to work for me just fine. And that's where this select a number from the list is actually going to go right here. And how do I do that? Well, if you remember how these loops work, I is going to start off, because we're doing a range of 14, I is going to start off as 0. In this case, it's index 0. Index 0 is 3. The way the list works is this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, this is index 3. That's how I get the values of those lists. Again, we have not covered lists, so I understand some of this may not make complete sense. But the bottom line is I can do this. Num list I. Okay, the first time we execute this loop, I is 0. It's going to reference 3. That's how I select a number. Now, in this next step, compare target to number in list. I'm going to put that up here because we're actually doing these in one line of code. I'm going to have I have this target that I've got from the user, and I'm going to use the equals operator. That's the comparison operator. And I want to say if our target, what we have from the user, is equal or compares equal to the first item in the list, then what? Print the target is in the list at index, what index? Well, it's at index I. Okay. And then if it is, again, I'm going to use a statement you're not familiar with. It's the break statement. What that does is it breaks me out of this for loop. It's not going to keep going. Okay, otherwise, and that's this right here. We actually we're doing 3 parts of our algorithm all in one. So we're going to compare, and I'll put this one down here actually. There we go. If that happens, we're done. What is the last part of our comment that we wrote? Select another number from the list. Well, it just so happens in this for loop, that's just going to happen automatically, right? This is going to loop. And I is going to start off as 0, and then I is going to become 1 and 2. And it's going to march right on down this list, comparing all these values to our target. Okay, let's just demonstrate how this works. Let's see if it does work. Okay, so let's put a target value in of 1, which is at index 0, 1, 2. So I'm going to put a 1 here. Let's see if our program works. Yep, 1 is in the list. The target is in the list at index 2. Okay, let's try it again. Let's try 12. It's the very last item. The target is in the list at index 13. Okay, let's try a number that's not in a list, just to see. And I don't see there's no 100 in there. Let's try 100. And what happens? Well, the program runs, but we didn't get a message that said it's not in the list. So let's put that in the list. How would we do that? Let's think through this. How would we do that? So if we get down here, we're going to print this statement. But if we get through the list and nothing ever appears, well, this is an example. Let's use a Boolean here. Just because we haven't talked about Booleans a whole lot, I'm going to create a variable called isFound, and I'm going to set it to default equals false. Okay. Now, if this happens over here, not only am I going to print a statement, I'm going to change isFound to true. Okay. And I'm going to move this print statement out of here. Okay, now all I'm going to do is if that, well, you know what I want to do too? I'm going to save this as, I'm going to create an index here. I could do this a couple different ways. Now let's stay with this. I'm going to set this index to -1. And I'm going to show you why here in a second. Okay, isFound, and then I'm also going to, I want to store that index equals I, because I might want to go reference that number later on. And I'm going to break out of here. Okay, now when the for loop is done, I'm going to simply use this Boolean value if, and I'm going to say if is found. Again, this is going to evaluate to a true or false. Its default is false. If is found, then I'm going to print target found at index. What index? Well, the variable's name's index, okay? Else, and you know what? This needs to be all the way back. That needs to be like that. I'm going to say else or otherwise what? Print target not found. Okay, so we've modified our algorithm a little bit. Algorithm's really the same. We just modified how we're printing. Let's try this and see if it still works. So let's try 100 again. Now we should get target not found. It's not in the list. Let's try something that's in the list. Let's try 44. Index 9. Okay, good. Now, last thing I want to show you. So here's our simple selection algorithm. It works. That's good. We get a search. We get some feedback on it's found or not found. What's cool now? This list has 14 elements in it. What I'm going to do is make a random list. In fact, I'll call it rand list, and I'm going to use the random module here. Now again, I don't expect you to understand exactly what I'm doing here, but you should be able to follow some of it. I'm going to use this randint function, and create a list, a randint from 0 to let's do 1,000. And I'm going to do this embedded. I think this is the right syntax. Let me see if I get an error. Well, that needs to be randint. Okay, I'm going to stop this. This syntax is a little weird. You guys don't have to worry about it. But what I want to do here, I'm going to print rand list just so you can see what this looks like. What I've done here is I've created a random list with 1,000 entries, 1,000 random entries, and the random entries are from 0 to 1,000. So let's just take a look at this and see what it looks like. And in fact, you can see now my list is big. Okay, so it's relatively big. Our list before was 14, now it's 1,000. Excuse me. The cool thing is, I'm going to comment this print out. We don't need that anymore. I just wanted to show you that. The cool thing is, our algorithm, whether it's 14 or 1,000, I can say here now rand it works the same. I'm just going to switch again. I'm just changing our reference to rand list. I think that's it. Now we can run this, and we're searching a random list of 1,000. Let's see. I don't know, 400. It's 400 in the list. Nope. Let's try something else. Let's try 245. Yeah, at index 186, there's the number of 245. Okay, I'll post this code in one of the chats so you can see. But this is just simple selection. If you have any questions, let me know. Hope this was helpful in understanding how we write a selection algorithm for a randomly generated, in our case, a randomly generated list of integers. Thanks.